My grandmother, bless her heart, swore this story was true right up until her last breath. It's one of those tales that has been passed down in my family, sending a shiver down our spines every time we tell it. It all happened back in the thick of the war, a time when London was under constant threat from the skies. My dad, he was just a tiny baby then, completely unaware of the chaos unfolding around him. The story begins on a night that would change everything. My grandmother's own home had been bombed out. Can you imagine? One moment you have a house, a place filled with memories, and the next, it's just rubble and dust. She was lucky to escape with her life, and even luckier to have a good friend who took her in. This friend offered her and my baby dad a place to stay, a temporary refuge from the storm of war. Her friend had a multi-story house, and she'd set up a room for my grandmother on the very top floor. It seemed like the best spot, maybe the quietest, away from the comings and goings of the rest of the house. So, as evening fell, my grandmother did what any mother would do. She picked up my dad, held him close, and started to climb up the stairs to put him to bed for the night. The house was probably dim, maybe just a single low-wattage bulb lighting the way, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The air would have been thick with the tension of the city, the ever-present hum of anxiety that was life during the Blitz. As she made her way up the creaking wooden staircase, with my dad sleeping peacefully in her arms, something happened that she could never explain, but never forgot. Halfway up the stairs, a figure began to materialize right in front of her. It wasn't a solid person, more like a shimmering, translucent form that slowly took shape out of the thin air. She said it was a man, though his features were indistinct, like looking at someone through frosted glass. He stood there, blocking her path, and a voice, which seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, spoke to her. It wasn't a shout, not an angry command, but a clear, firm warning. He simply said, "Do not sleep in that room tonight." My grandmother froze, her heart hammered against her ribs, but her maternal instinct kicked in stronger than any fear. She didn't question it. She didn't try to reason with it or ask who he was. The presence felt ancient and serious. In that single terrifying moment, she knew she had to listen. She turned around without a second thought, her feet flying back down the stairs she had just climbed. She clutched my dad so tightly, her only thought being to get away from that top floor. She burst back into the sitting room where her friend was. Her friend looked up, surprised to see her back so soon. My grandmother, probably pale and still shaking, announced that she and the baby would be sleeping in the sitting room that night, right there on the sofa, or maybe on a makeshift bed on the floor. Now, her friend wasn't exactly thrilled. She was probably annoyed, maybe a little confused. She'd gone to the trouble of preparing the upstairs room, making it comfortable for her guest. And here was my grandmother suddenly refusing to use it for no apparent reason. "What's wrong with the room?" she might have asked, but my grandmother couldn't bring herself to explain what she had seen. How could she? "I just saw a ghost on the stairs who told me not to sleep there." It sounded insane, like the ramblings of someone whose nerves were shot from the bombings. So, she just insisted, her voice firm. "We are sleeping down here tonight." After some back and forth, her friend, likely seeing the genuine fear and determination in my grandmother's eyes, finally relented. Maybe she chalked it up to wartime stress, so they settled in for the night in the sitting room, an unconventional sleeping arrangement. But my grandmother felt a strange, unexplainable peace about my dad, the baby, was tucked into a makeshift cot next to her, safe and sound. And then, in the dead of night, the world exploded. The familiar, terrifying scream of a falling bomb tore through the air, followed by a deafening blast that shook the very foundations of the house. It was close, dangerously close. Plaster rained down from the ceiling, the windows rattled in their frames, and the whole house groaned under the impact of the shockwave. When the dust began to settle and the ringing in their ears subsided, they took stock of the damage. The sitting room, on the ground floor, was a mess, but largely intact. But when they dared to look upstairs, their blood ran cold. The bomb had landed nearby, and the explosion had completely caved in the roof of the house. Heavy beams, tiles, and tons of brick and debris had crashed down with devastating force. And where had it all landed? Directly onto the top floor room, right on top of the very spot where my dad's cot had been placed. The cot was obliterated, crushed into splinters under the immense weight of the collapsed roof. If my dad had been sleeping there, as planned, he would have been killed instantly. There would have been no escape, no chance of survival. My grandmother and her friend just stood there, staring in stunned silence at the wreckage, the reality of what had almost happened washing over them in a sickening wave. Her friend turned to my grandmother, her annoyance from earlier replaced with sheer, unadulterated shock and gratitude. She finally understood. My grandmother's strange, stubborn insistence on sleeping downstairs hadn't been madness. It had been a premonition, a life-saving intervention. That night, my grandmother knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the figure on the stairs had saved her son's life. Who was he? A former resident of the house, a guardian angel, a spirit tied to the property, watching over its inhabitants. She never knew. She never saw him again, but she never had to. His one appearance was enough. This story became a cornerstone of our family's history. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes there are things in this world that we can't explain, forces that operate just beyond the veil of our understanding. For my grandmother, it wasn't a spooky ghost story. It was a testament to a miracle. It was the night a ghostly stranger on a staircase ensured that her baby boy, my dad, would live to see another day. And for that, our entire family is eternally grateful. Thanks for listening to my family story. If you have any unexplained encounters of your own, I'd love to read them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from the other side.